Day 3 in the Big Brother house. Only kidding. Meeting three in 3 weeks, 3 weeks in a row at the same meeting on the same day at the same time. And today it was step 5. Step 5, and it's kind of described as the confessional step. So with step 4 in AA, you make your searching soulful, fearless inventory. Step 5, you share the true nature, the exact nature of your wrongs with someone else or with God as you understand them. A lot of talk tonight about God, about the nature of belief, and how for anyone who's listening to these chats and thinks, oh, that's the problem with AA, that's the problem with 12-step recovery programs, the biggest common feature that comes out of nearly all meetings is the vast majority of people aren't on board with the conventional sense of the term God. It's about faith. It's about a belief in something beyond oneself. It's the idea that there is more to who you are, what you are, and how you exist than simply your mind, and let's face it, than just simply the alcoholic mind of an alcoholic. I always remember when I came round in rehab, not from being annihilated drunk, just I think I was put on sedatives of sorts to begin with, and I remember them saying, you know, how do you feel you being in charge of making decisions in your life? How has that worked for you? And I sort of remember sitting there literally in my bed thinking, I said, well, I mean, it's not been, you know, by and large it's been fine. And they were like, but you've ended up in a mental institute, essentially. If you end up in rehab, or if you come close to going to rehab, you're in a mental institute. You've got a disease. Your problem with alcohol, substance abuse, whatever your compulsive behavior is, it's reached a point where you have driven yourself, or you have been driven, sometimes literally, through the front door of a rehab unit or a mental institute. So anyway, so I opened my mouth in the meeting. You know, some meetings I go to, I don't always open my mouth. In this one, I feel I can. And it was a really gentle, it was a really meaningful share or chair regarding a person's working through of step 5, which usually, as the confessional step, this is, you've made your list, and you've made that list in cahoots with often a sponsor, and this is the moment where you share everything. You share the nature, the exact nature, the true unflinching nature of everything you've done, all of the resentments, all of the behaviors, all of the acts. You go through everything, and you go through it with such a fine-tooth comb. I mean, someone used the phrase, you have to make sure you scrape it bare. And that's where, I presume, again, in religious circles, that's where the confessional aspect comes from. And the important part of this is, it's not just a one-way street of you opening your mouth to someone else, usually your sponsor. It's not just a case of opening your mouth and just splurging all the worst shit you've ever done, but the person you're sharing with often will share as much back to you. And sometimes it's about you finding parallels, or finding echoes and connections of what they've done with what you've done, and suddenly you realize that awful things, or things that you've done that were driven by what felt like awful motives or instincts or impulses. Oh my God, this guy or this woman has felt exactly the same thing. These aren't unique to me. And I think there's that weird thing with most addicts and alcoholics, where on the one hand, you feel everything that's happened to you is unique and original, and you know, no one else will have experienced this type of feeling like me. And then you realize, oh my God, not only have they experienced it, they've experienced it in a worse way, they've experienced it in a more difficult way, they've experienced it in a different way. But I also, when I opened my mouth, I also shared about, because of course one doesn't share about the details of what anyone else says, but the one thing I did say tonight was, I talked about how one of my big character defects is writing the script. I try and write the script of what other people are feeling, what other people actually mean when they say one thing. Do you really mean something else? And that writing the script for others and writing the script for the situation that you're in at any point can sometimes land to those who love you or those who know you as, why are you so suspicious? Why don't you trust? Why don't you trust me? There's almost a kind of there's a real kind of suspicion in you. You seem sort of a bit edgy and a bit sort of I don't know, sort of ill at ease, and that can manifest in a way that makes you feel, makes you seem, because you're writing the script, like you're not listening and you're not hearing and you're not willing to be moved from whatever narrative conclusion you want. So what I mean by writing a script is, do any of you guys do this? It's like, no. You hear someone say something nice to you, but actually, no, it suits you. It suits me to write the script of, you're only saying that because you feel you ought to say it, or you're only saying that because you kind of feel sorry for me, or you don't really want me to come because you're only saying that because you feel bad about me not coming or not doing this. And then you see how you then tilt into kind of, you know, self-pity and poor me stuff and all the rest of it. So the confessional step 5 this evening was it was a discussion about the confessional step. And for me, it's not just about confessing everything you've done, you've thought, you've felt, you've literally done that could have hurt people, might have hurt people, because eventually in the steps you're going to go and make amends to people. But it's also about recognizing the reasons why you've arrived at all your list of defects, all the things that you do wrong. Why? Okay, it's one thing to know what you do. For me, step 4 is the what you do's, step 5 is the why you do's, and step 5 is the why you do's, and in confessing it and in airing it, and a little bit of what we do on this channel, me opening up like this, whilst I'm not going into the finer details of everything I've gone through. I mean, I've done 2 step 5s in my 21 years sober with 2 different, in fact, I didn't complete it with one sponsor, I did complete it with the other. And when I completed it the first time, I had a really thick a tiny notebook, but it was thick, with all of the list of all of the things that I really wanted to annotate, the list of all the things I'd done wrong. And what I found when I did my step 5 was, yes, you can have like hundreds of things that you go, oh, I said this, I did this, I was unfaithful to this person, I was rude to this person, I nicked this notebook off someone, I was cruel to this person, you know, all these kind of things. I was unfair to this relative, you know, all that sort of stuff. When you then go to the step 5 section of it, that 100, 150, 200 list of things that you've listed, what they all distill down to is often just 2 or 3 much broader impulses or reasons, if you like, as to why you do so many of them. You know, it could be, you know, low self-esteem, or it could be a fear of rejection, or it could be a fear of loss and all the rest of it, or it could just be like a fear of the unknown, you know, not, you know, and then in sharing these things, you realize that you connect with someone else. And the reason AA is better than, say, a confessional with a vicar is how relatable is what you're saying actually to a vicar. I mean, a vicar can say you're cleansed and you've shared it to someone who's a representative of God, but actually in AA, you're sharing it with someone who, like for like, has probably gone through at least some of the things, or experienced some of the things you're sharing, or some of the things you're working through. And then you can look to them for inspiration for that next leg of kind of, you know, changing behavior, and you know, in the next step, handing it over to a system of belief and practice. It's quite Buddhist. I mean, I know religion, organized religion, I can't stand it, and God and all that stuff is really difficult to get on board with. But the Buddhism, there's a meditative Buddhism to all of it. So anyway, tonight I just wanted to come out. I just wanted to say that I said that I'd share with you how these meetings are going. Tonight was a really It was a really illuminating reminder of the significance and importance of step 5 and the confessional step, the importance of confession. And the reason confession fundamentally and ultimately is important is that when you take something, if you hold on to something and you don't confess it, you feel shame. And this speaks to that thing that we've talked about before about the family day when I was in rehab. I think there is almost, it's not a hard and fast rule and there's no analytics on it, or there's no data, but I would hazard a guess that recovering alcoholics or addicts who allowed their families to come in, and their families were allowed in rehab to tell the addict everything that had gone wrong, so the addict had no shred of doubt as to how much upset they'd caused, how much distress, how much worry, how much they'd taken people for granted or taken advantage or let people down. If you are facing the raw, unblanched kind of, or blanched sort of reality of your behavior in someone else, if they're telling you that, that's their confessional. They're telling you what you did. That's their confessional. Your family, those who are closer to you, confessing to you, this is how you treated us. In reverse, the confession of all of your defects and bad behavior and wrong choices and hurtful comments and hurtful behaviors, you end up taking some of the power out of it, because shame holds on to you. Shame is like a mollusk. It just locks onto parts of your heart, and or a leech, and it feeds on that. And it feeds on that. And some days you can get round it, you're just aware of the awkwardness of it, but then it can become a much bigger burden that's actually got most of your actual blood and most of your fucking heart in it. If you confess and truly confess, go to the root of it, go to the heart of it, go to the origin, the story of that bad behavior or defect or whatever it is, and you've confessed it to someone, you take all of its power away. It no longer resides in a corner. And that's why they say it's really important that you do a complete clear out, an absolute vacuum clean of every part, every recess of your soul. Because if it stays there, a little bit like, you know, when they talk about when they try and they take a tumor out and then they try and take all the other bits of cancerous tissue out. They need to get the lot out, because if you leave a little bit in there, it can build and it can grow, and the shame starts to come back. And if you've left no stone unturned in your confessional of step 5, it's not going to answer everything, of course. There's no guarantees of any form in anything, anywhere. But it's certainly going to make your next steps in recovery better. And I know that when I've had that luxury of knowing there's a man who knows everything I've done, and I've had shame in telling him, but in telling him, he's reflected back and said, I've done that too. And you're like, wow. There's a release, and there's a letting go, and there's a cleanliness of spirit that creeps in. So this is a good reminder today. So one of the next things I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks, I'm going to very gently start to reach out to find myself a new sponsor. Watch this space.